3, 2, 1. Hello everybody, my name is Nati and welcome back to Lady and the Trash. Here I am with another quote-unquote review in which I share my personal opinions about a Thai show. Today, I will talk about Together the series, which became so incredibly popular in just a couple of weeks, it's crazy. As always, I will start with a very brief summary for those who haven't seen it, and after that, I'll continue with the spoiler part. Together is about a boy named Tyne who is in his first year of university. He's been in many superficial relationships with many different girls, but always feels like he never found the one. One day, Green, another boy from his university, falls in love with him and starts chasing him. Since Tyne doesn't reciprocate his feelings, but Green continues to chase him anyway, he thinks of a way to discourage Green and make him stop. So, he decides to ask Sarawat, one of the most popular guys of the campus, to be his fake boyfriend in order to convince Green to give up on him. So that was the plot. If you decide to continue watching this video, it's better if you've already watched the series, because I will spoil a lot of things. First of all, I'll be honest. When the first teaser came out at the end of last year, I wasn't interested at all. Even though I love fake dating, it's one of my favorite romance tropes. I didn't really find the first teaser appealing. I don't know why, it looked like a mess. I decided that I wanted to watch it mostly because Drake and Frank are in it. But I didn't have high expectations. But when the final teaser was released and the show actually started, I found myself so pleasantly surprised by this series. It's light, sweet, funny, heartwarming, just what I was looking for. A cute BL rom-com to brighten my days in this dark real-life situation. Until episode 11, I could easily say that Together was becoming one of my favorite Thai shows ever. This statement is still true, but something changed in the last 2 episodes. But I'll explain it later. Prepare for a huge rant at the end. In this first part, I will pretend that those 2 episodes don't exist, so everything that I'm going to say is referred to episodes 1 to 11. Since I have more positive than negative things to say about Together, I will start with what I disliked. First of all, the relationships between the brothers. The show tells us that Sarawat and Pukong are brothers, and that Tyne and Type are brothers. But it almost didn't affect the plot at all. Sarawat and Pukong talked like once in the whole series, and Tyne and Type's relationship was condensed in just 1 episode. Just like I love seeing well-portrayed friendships in this kind of series, I also love seeing bromances. But here, we had almost nothing. It only looked like a poor way to connect every character's storyline. At a point of the show, I almost forgot that Pukong was supposed to be Sarawat's brother. Second, the female characters. Excluding Pam, I'll talk about her at the end, the other female characters felt a little bit useless. The best one was definitely Eun, but still, she was pretty irrelevant for the story, and that's a shame. On the other hand, Pear was just used as a plot device, and when Tyne stopped being interested in her, she almost completely disappeared from the show, and that's a shame. And honestly, Eun and Pear were such girlfriends material. We were robbed. GMMTV, please just give me a GL already. Third, how they handle the secondary couple's screen time. How can you write a complete storyline for a couple that starts interacting at more than half of the series? That's exactly how it was for Men and Type, and it's definitely a shame, because I like them so freaking much and I would pay actual money to see more of them. Fourth complaint that I have, they never openly discuss sexuality. In Together, no one talks about sexual preferences. No one. It's nice that all of the characters consider same-sex relationships as a normal thing, but I would have preferred if someone at some point would have done a coming out, or at least discussed about being attracted to a person of the same sex. Luckily, in some ways, this can also be a pro. If everyone considers same-sex relationships normal, then no one is a homophobe. What I mean is that in the Together universe, homophobia is inexistent. None of the conflicts that happened were caused by someone being homophobic. When Tyne started to fall in love with Sarawat, he never said, "But he's a boy." He just went with it. Min and his gang never attacked Sarawat because he was queer, but only because Min liked Tyne too. Type kept an eye on Sarawat and tried to keep Tyne away from him because he's overprotective and wanted to be sure that his little brother was in good hands. Tyne's friends didn't try to convince him to date a girl just because they didn't want a queer friend, but because they were afraid that his feelings were just temporary and not genuine. What I'm saying is that they never used homophobia as a conflict. And I personally think it's great. Second great thing in Together. There's kinda nothing problematic. I'm not saying that everything that happened was 100% okay, but I think that Together is one of the least problematic BL shows ever. There's no rape or any kind of sexual assault or harassment. Sure, I didn't like too much a few scenes. For example, Sarawat undressing Tyne and then posting a picture of him in just his underwear, or men pretending to be an to approach type, but none of those actually evolved into something actually problematic. Third, the characterization of Sarawat and Tyne. From episode 1 to episode 11, as a viewer, you get to see the evolution of the two main characters bit by bit. And the show doesn't reveal everything altogether. It gives you more and more information as the story progresses. At the beginning, I thought that they didn't know each other at all before they started to fake date. But after a couple of episodes, I started to suspect that Sarawat was actually in love with Tyne. But it didn't make sense because he didn't know him. Or did he? And when we saw the flashback of Scrap's concert, I started to put all the pieces together until episode 11. At the end of episode 11, when Sarawat lets Tyne listen to the song he wrote for him, the show retraces the whole story from Sarawat's point of view and finally connects all the pieces together. That made me fully understand Sarawat's character. And I think for me, it was the best and satisfying scene of the whole show. Tyne's character development was also amazingly done, according to me. Even though I found myself screaming at the screen, "For fuck's sake, he actually likes you, how can you be so stupid?" Almost every episode. Thinking about it now, I can understand him. That poor boy must have been so confused, trying to read Sarawat's signals, but never being sure if what he did was real or fake, because they were fake dating, so they were supposed to say cute stuff and do cute stuff. But sometimes, even for Tyne, it felt too real. Also, Win made a brilliant job portraying Tyne's emotion through his facial expressions. Also considering that he is a rookie actor and this one was his first series. I found myself so into their relationship. They made me feel things every time they looked at each other or talked to each other. Their actual confession, how Tyne cried in front of him for the first time because he wanted to do something for Sarawat for once but felt like he wasn't good enough for him. How Tyne then proceeded to accept his feelings and they hugged. That whole episode of them being domestic at their shared apartment. All of these things, yes, they are my shit. I didn't even care about the lack of kisses. Tyne and Sarawat just made me want to fall in love. Looking at them, I felt so single, but in a good way. They made me want to find someone to be in such a relationship with. And that's why I think the show made an excellent job at portraying their love even without kiss scenes. A fictional couple doesn't need kisses to be believable, if done well. Kisses are more like a bonus, an extra. Another thing that I loved were the friendships portrayed in Together. That's something I'm almost always sure GMMTV is going to do right, because we have so many examples of great friendships in GMMTV's shows. If I have to be honest, there was one episode in particular in which Tyne's friends pissed me off. You know, the one in which they kinda wanted to force him into not liking Sarawat, but that only went on for that episode, so I didn't care too much. On the other hand, Sarawat's squad was pure gold. But come on, you can't not have a perfect squad if you put Gunsmile and Mike in it. They're just peak comedy. And in a few episodes, they also gave me some scenes in which the two groups of friends become one. Those were some of my all-time favorite scenes. I laughed so much you can't even imagine. For example, when they were all drunk, tried to pee on a car and Fong, was it Fong? I think so. Tried to pee out of Tyne's balcony. Or when they started to toast for everything just to make Tyne drunk. Talking about this, the comedy of this show was particularly good for me. And I tend to rarely laugh out loud watching Thai series. But in this one, I actually laughed so hard so many times. Every time Man and Boss were on screen, but also when in episode 11 they went camping and Pidim kept blowing out Milne's candle. Or Green was dressed up as Sadako from The Ring. God, I love this show so much. And since I mentioned him, I was also pretty satisfied of how they handled Green's character. He's a feminine gay boy, and if you often watch this kind of BLs, you may know that this type of character isn't usually treated too well. Feminine gay characters are generally there as comic reliefs, and they're often just caricatures. But Green is different. Sure, Green is a pretty comedic character, but he's also portrayed as a real human being, with actual emotions that are considered valid. Also, technically speaking, together was pretty great. The warm colors palette that they chose gives this show such a delicate and bright aesthetic that matches the lighthearted tone of the story. The soundtrack is just perfect. I love when they just choose one artist's music for the whole soundtrack because it gives a sense of homogeneity, and it's very satisfying. And let's be real, Scrap's songs are great and have just the right vibe for the show. My favorite has to be Click. I love it. Na ni na ni na ni na ni na 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 na. I also enjoyed everyone's acting. There were just some really stupid mistakes, like Tyne wearing the bracelet in a scene before Sarawat even gave it to him, or some of the characters' hairstyles that were slightly different from scene to scene. But I can't really complain, since I was so hooked on the story and the character that it didn't really bother me too much. But now, here we are, and it's time for me to start my rant about everything that went wrong with the last episodes. Get ready, guys. I loved almost everything about Together, but at the end, there was a sudden change. They created useless drama that could easily not exist. They just created a useless mess. And I'm sure they did it just to add drama. Because if you make the sad part more dramatic, when you give me a happy ending, then the happiness hits harder. But if you give me such a heavy dramatic part, the happy part must be as heavy as the dramatic one. This would have been a perfect ending if they didn't create that much drama at the end of episode 12. It could have just been that Tyne was kinda insecure and misinterpreted some things, not destroy everything that was good with Sarawat's characterization only for the sake of drama. It happens something similar in Dark Blue Kiss, according to me. I also said it in my Dark Blue Kiss review. The drama that they created between Mok and San was useless compared to how they developed their characters. But at least in Dark Blue Kiss, the ending made it worth it because it kinda rebalanced the drama with an ending that was enough satisfying. But in Together, I felt like the ending didn't rebalance at all the mess that they created in episode 12. It was too quick. They made up in the last part of the last episode. It was just too fast. Imagine the development of Sarawat and Tyne's romance as a line that keeps increasing during the episodes. Then in episode 12, it just drops. And episode 13, to be satisfying enough, needs to retake this line at the same level it was before. To me, this didn't happen. It was more something like this. Also, what happened to like every character? Tyne misunderstood a situation that was not that bad. I mean, Pam was hugging Sarawat, sure, but Sarawat was clearly not hugging her back. He could push her away faster. Yeah, he definitely could, but there was no actual reason for Tyne to be so sure that Sarawat was still in love with her and lied to him the whole time. The conversation he had with Min at the hospital was so pointless. Tyne was like, he lied to me. He said he didn't have feelings for Pam. It didn't seem that way from the way I saw it. Oh, fuck me, Tyne. You said it yourself. It didn't seem that way from the way you saw it. Did you ask him to explain? Did you give him a chance to talk? No, he tried to tell you and you didn't even want to listen. That's just the laziest plot device you could use. Characters not wanting to communicate. You know, it's always like this. I can explain. You don't need to. I know the truth. No, you don't. It's a misunderstanding. I don't care. I don't want to see you again. Bye. I would have got it if he saw them kissing or if he heard Sarawat directly telling her he liked her. But there was no point in Him thinking that everything Sarawat told him was a lie. I'm so pissed. Also, Sarawat was just okay with this. He tried to explain once. Tyne didn't let him, and he just didn't show up again. Instead, he went every day to play soccer with some random kids because he was depressed. Since Tyne really only misunderstood and Sarawat didn't cheat on him or anything, he had all the rights to insist a bit more. But like this, it felt like he didn't care. And that was so out of character if we consider how Sarawat was developed until episode 11. Come on, man, just go meet him the day later. Beg him to listen to you. Tell him your point of view before he has a chance to interrupt. Do something, anything. Also, when they made up at the end, at the concert, Sarawat was the only one to kind of apologize. Tyne didn't say anything, and he was the one creating all of that mess for a misunderstanding. The least he could do was apologize to Sarawat for not giving him a chance to explain. God, I'm so mad at the last episode. Actually, this kind of misunderstanding and miscommunication is common in so many series, and I shouldn't be surprised. But I can't help but feeling disappointed because Together wasn't just any series. Together was so much more and never relied on such a lazy writing. So that's why I'm so pissed at the last minute drama they added. It would have been more reasonable if the drama only revolved around Tyne's insecurities, just like in episode 11, and without using Pam's character as an antagonist to increase the drama. Also because in the novel, Pam is Sarawat's friend and never had a crush on him. So why changing one of the few actual good things in the novel? I mean, for most of the show, I was glad that they changed almost everything of the novel, but there was one thing that you needed to keep, and you didn't. Come on! If the show concentrated for a couple of episodes more on Tyne's insecurity, creating only the necessary amount of drama, Tyne and Sarawat's storyline could have ended with the scene in the abandoned bus. You know, the one in episode 11, which was perfect according to me. Sarawat reassuring Tyne that it was all in his head, Tyne believing him, and then the viewer retracing the whole story from Sarawat's point of view. And then maybe they could have just added the final scene or the final episode and made it revolve around the concert and focus on Control S winning the competition. Also, I felt like they kind of forced Min and Pukong's happy ending. I think Min's crush on Tyne should have stopped at least a few episodes before the end for him to be able to sincerely leave his heart open for Pukong, just like he said at the end. Like this, it looked like Pukong was okay with being a second choice and a replacement. It's totally legit for Min to not instantly like Pukong, but it felt more like he only gave Pukong a chance because he had no more possibilities with Tyne, not because he was gradually able to accept him. Episode 13 wasn't completely negative though. Luckily, Man and Type saved it. And when I opened Tumblr a couple of hours after the episode and found so many gift sets of them, I realized that so many people had the same feeling. Their story was developed too late, and they could have been so much more. But I felt satisfied with the ending. I just really liked their dynamic from the beginning. Type being this big-ass tsundere with a soft heart inside, and Man being Man. Most of their scenes were peak comedy. I was afraid a couple of times that Man would cross the line, like when he pretended to be Eun and sent her to the date, or when he started following him everywhere, but he never did it in a harmful or toxic way. And when he felt definitely rejected after the dinner with Type's colleagues, he stepped back. Their whole dynamic reminded me of Ming and Kit from Two Moons. Just like when Ming disappeared from Kit's life, he immediately wanted him back, even though he used to think he was annoying. And since I'm also a big fan of Ming and Kit, I couldn't not like Man and Type. Okay, I talked too much already, but I wanted to include as many things as possible without talking about them in a too superficial way. I'm not sure it actually worked, but I tried my best. So, to answer the question in the title, according to me, is Together worth the hype? Overall, yes. It's a shame that they kinda ruined it with the last episodes, but I definitely don't regret watching it at all. I mean, it's not like it was Make Our Days Count ending. I don't know why it became that much popular. I'm pretty sure GMMTV doesn't know either. Probably they didn't expect such a success. Maybe because the main actors weren't really well known before this show. I mean, Win is a rookie and Bright wasn't in the BL scene. But to be honest, I'm happy that it was such a light-hearted and heartwarming show to reach such a success instead of something problematic. As always, if you have different opinions, just share them in the comments so that we can have some conversation and I don't feel like I'm just talking to a wall. If you like this video, a thumbs up is appreciated. Subscribe if you want to. Thanks again for watching, and as always, see you in the next video. Bye bye!